session. We'll be starting off in a few minutes. I just want to say hello to everybody who is here already. If you're here online or in person and you have access to the chat, why not say hello and let us know where you're joining us from. If you're from anywhere in the world, I'm joining you from Chicago this morning. Been to another community conference and I'm traveling back home today. So unfortunately, I'm not with you in person, but very much there with you in spirit, and very much love this event. So I'll be looking forward to kicking this off in just a few minutes. Welcome, Paul. Join from India. It's time for us to start the session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and we'll kick off with this session on reactive screen flows. So let me just share my screen and then we'll pop in the menu. I can see, Paul, you see you're beginning in flows. This session's is just an introduction to reactive screen flows, so you don't need to be an expert to be in this particular session. Although if you do have some experience with Flow Builder, some of the things in here that you'll see will bring be a bit more understandable if you have a little bit of experience, but you don't have to be an expert at all. So let me just share my screen here. We will be shifting around tabs, so I'm going to just try sharing my screen like that, and we're there. Okay, so let me just share my slideshow, and then we'll kick off. If at any point any of the tabs aren't visible, please try and let me know in the chat, and we'll correct that as quickly as I can. So welcome to Let's Get Reactive. This is an introduction to reactive screen flows. We want to say a big thank you to our sponsors who we couldn't be able to do this event without. And it is always a great event packed. It's the third year of a run, and I've been speaking every single year so far. This is a really great conference to be at. So it's great to be able to be joining you at it virtually once again, and also great as in person this year as well. So really special for a conference to be in person. So that is great. Just so you know a little bit about myself, I'm not going to rabble about myself too long because we've only got about 30 minutes for this session. And want to try and include a little bit of time for questions and answers towards the end as well. So my name is Mark Jones. I am a Salesforce consultant with a company called Time Technology. We are a non-profit focused Salesforce consultancy based out of the UK. Although I am joining you from Chicago this today. It is just after 5 a.m. Local time here. So, and I have been here for non-profit Dreaming, which as well recently. So I'm joining you very early in the morning here in Chicago. I've been in the ecosystem for about 7 years, and I'm also 7-time certified Salesforce professional, most recently my EI associate certification. Very much active in the Trailblazer community, and I see that Hamza is going to be doing a really great session on getting involved in the community right after this session. And I blog about Flow as well at the Flow Architect, which you can find online or through my various social profiles. But let's talk about reactive screen flows. Let's say we've got a 30-minute session left, and we are a few minutes in, so we've got probably about 25 minutes remaining for the time that we have this morning. But what we're going to cover is what are reactive screen flows. You're going to get to see a live demo of a reactive screen flow, and you're going to see a little bit about what's coming for reactive screen flows in the future. But first, let's talk about reactive screen flows are, because you might have not seen them as of yet. You might be here on the call, you might not know what a screen flow is at all as well. So in very layman's terms, what a screen flow is, it is essentially a guided process that you build inside of Flow Builder for Salesforce, where you essentially create a on-screen form essentially, and you fill in various bits of information, and that information can be used to do all sorts of things, such as sending out emails, even sending out Slack notifications. But most commonly, it is used to populate data inside Salesforce from that screen that you do. You will see, obviously, a reactive screen flow as part of the demo. And in this case, it's going to be a submission of a holiday request, as that is a fairly common example that I can imagine for reactive screen flows. There is lots of other ones, and in the resources list that you have in the URL in this chat, and you'll get a QR code for it in this session as well. There is a session provided by Adam White, who is one of the PMs on the Flow team, who has been driving reactive screen flows. And that session goes through some more use cases. But specifically in terms of reactive screen flows, the idea is for you to basically be able to build a screen in a screen flow where you don't necessarily have to click next to see changes applied or react to each other. And as you can see in the example on the screen here, what is happening is some text is being added and a character limit is being displayed, as well as a toast message at the top there. So the idea is basically that you will not have to click on next for components to react to each other. Again, just based on what information I have on the audience here today, what you can see here on this in this GIF here is you can see there are 4 different input components in this flow. We have a checkbox, 2 text inputs, and a radio button input, and these are input components. We also have 2 display text components, which are reacting to changes being made, as well as a custom element, a custom component, which is being displayed in the form of the toast message at the top. You can see changing between completing 100%, 75%, and 50% of the form. But how reactive screen flows work is that you create formulas in your screen flow, which reference other input components, and you then put those formulas as the default value in order for them to react. You'll see a little bit of that as we go into the demo very, very shortly. So here's some use cases for reactive screen flows before we go into the demo. We have annual leave or holiday request, which is the one I'm going to be demonstrating here. We've got time log entries. So if you say are working in a company where you use Salesforce to log your working time, some consultancies do it. The consultancy I work at, we use a custom object to log the time that we work on there. So that could be a use case for a reactive screen flow. You can have things so for deal creators. So if you're selling a product or a service and you want to give a discount, for example, to a customer, you can calculate that. For other use cases, particularly for non-profit clients, membership discount calculations could be used in a reactive screen flow. Another one that I personally am working on is around case estimation calculators. So I work predominantly within service, within the company I work in. So what I'm working on as an idea is a reactive screen concept for a reactive screen flow, where I'd be able to input some various items and it would approximate how long a piece of work should take. So that's an example of one. Quick email messaging could be also a possibility with reactive screen flows as well, and there'd be a load more There'll be a ton more use cases for it, but that's just a small sampling of that, and we're going to be focusing, as I say, on annual leave requests in this session. So now we've gotten to the part of the session which you'll be no doubt wanting to see the most, which is a demo of Reactive Screen Flows. So I'm going to come out of my presentation at this stage, and I'm going to go back into Salesforce, and what you'll see here is I am on a custom object called holiday cards, which is basically the tool that is being used to submit holiday requests. And what you'll see on the right hand side is I've got a screen flow here, and it's a fairly simple one. There's nothing massive being added here, and this screen flow doesn't even include reactive display text at the moment as such. And we're not going to add reactive display text in this session, but I will show you how to enable it in just a moment. Well, how this flow will work is if I add in a start date, let's say, for example, I want to add in the 6th of November, it'll populate the end date field. But if I now grab this little slider underneath here and see how many days I'm submitting, you can see there the date is now changing live. And if I scroll up all the way to the top of 26, you'll see there it ups the end date right to where I want it to be. So let's say I want 5 days, I want to submit a week on holiday, and I will put in some display text here. And this is a fairly simple screen flow. And if I click on next, you'll see, because I've got that display text hidden because I've added a reason, I can now click on next. I can submit that, and you can see it has updated here as well. So I've submitted on the side here, you can see I've submitted 3 holiday requests. 1 holiday is pending, and I've got 25 days remaining on here, because you can see if I go to my holidays, I've got 1 holiday request in here, and I've been able to submit what holidays I want to take on there. But that's how you can see it on the UI front. What about in the back end? Well, before we go too far in the back end, let me just go into setup here, which you can obviously access through the setup cogwheel by clicking on the cogwheel here and then clicking setup. So I'm in Flows at the moment, but if I go to process automation settings, what I want to show you very quickly is how you can turn on display text reactivity. So this is currently a beta. So if you go into your setup and process automation settings and you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page here, you'll see here there's a tick box here for opt-in to reactive display text beta. All you need to do is just click on that and then save, and that'll allow you to be active in the beta. Now, the flow I've got is literally called create holiday request, which you can see here, and you can see how the flow runs in this one. So basically what it does is it gets the user record first, and very, very simple. I'm going to scroll along here because of the new UI. I'm going to move this sharing icon for a second. Here, you can see here, I'm pulling in from just the user ID of the person who's accessing the flow on here. So basically it's coming in, it's basically pulling in from the staff member field. So it's on that. And so if I go back to that, you can see that the ID equals the staff member on there. It then just does a check to see whether they have any days remaining that they can book. So greater than equal to 1 if they don't have any holidays. it would return to this screen here where it says you don't have enough holidays in your balance to book in anything. We have a bit in here which just sets the initial request value just so it doesn't have too much work left to do towards the end of the flow. So it just sets the record ID, what this holiday status is for this request, which is the leave pending, and then who's requested the holiday. It then pops up with our screen flow, our screen, and you can see here, if I go on to the create holiday request, this was the screen that you saw here. And you can see we've got the toggle here, and we've got the start and end date, and then the reason for the holiday, and then the display text. Now you can see here I've got a field here. This is not a reactive formula here in the range maximum, but what you can do is a little trick inside of, say, a slider. If you're doing something like, say, a holiday request like this, you can actually put in a value from a field in here, and you can populate that, and that will be. And what that does is that allows me to only book in a maximum of the holidays I've got remaining. So in this case, I had a 28-day holiday calendar. This number here is how many days remaining I could take, and this would change. So if I've booked in, say, 20 days in total, this would only allow me to book in 10. So eight. But in terms of where you can see the reactivity coming in, this is where you'll see it. If I go on to end date, you'll see here I've got a formula here for end date. And what that does is it basically takes the start date, and when you slide up, it will calculate what the end date is based on how many days are selected in the slider. In terms of start date, there isn't a default value in there because this is just letting you set it up from creation, but end date is where we have the reactivity. And if I go into the calculate end date, you can see here is my formula for here. And you can see here, if the number of days requested is 1, it leaves it at the same day. And then what it does is it will then go up to the number of days requested value, which is the slider. And what it will do is, if you say request 2 days, what Salesforce natively does is it will say, essentially, you've got up until if you start on the Monday and you say you're doing 2 days, it would say your holiday is up until the Wednesday, which doesn't quite translate to how holidays work, at least in the UK. So it is basically the start date plus the days requested, subtract 1, which will get you to, for example, if you requested 5 days, it will keep you at 5 days rather than 6. Now, if we've got a little bit of time on here, but so what we could potentially do if we wanted to is if I went into the screen, we could easily add in a bit of text here to show you the number of days remaining. We're not going to do that as such for this one because we have, say, about 10 minutes around about 10 minutes remaining. So I'll just talk you through quickly the rest of the flow before I wrap up on the sides and we go into Q&A. Once the flow is finished, it updates the remaining values, setting the start and the end date and the holiday request name, which is a formula. And I just use that as a naming convention where it is the user's name and then when the holiday is. And you can see that I've got 2 formulas there for the start and end date. And those are very simple, where I just put in the start date here. And you can just see that if I drag down, I've just put that in date, month, year formats, generally because that's how we do it in the UK. But if you were doing this in, say, the US or any other country, like Pakistan, for example, you could just format the formula here based on how you want to have your days displayed. Then after that, it creates the holiday request there just by doing a creation, simple create records by setting the values that I've used in the various assignments so far. But before that, it checks that there's been a reason added. And you can see that here is if there is no reason added in there, it will send you back to the original screen that you logged in on here, the configure holiday requests. That's more of a fail-safe on there, but because we would want a reason to be added for the holiday. So that's how the flow works, very, very simply. So again, if I go back, and if I was to now just demo this again, if I was to say, let's just say I wanted the 25th off and take the 25th and 26th because they are UK bank holidays, and then submit that, an example. Put this in as another example. You can see there how that reacted. That's reactive screen flows in a very, very simple iteration. And you can see there if I was again submitting that, it'll then change and it'll scroll up and down. So that's reactive screen flows in a very, very quick whistle-stop format. Before we move on to Q&A, I am just going to go back to my slideshow and share the remaining slides. So we've seen the demo there of reactive screen flows, and hopefully that gave you a little bit of an impression as to what is possible. There was a lot more that you can do with reactive screen flows, and there's a lot more coming as well. So let's talk very briefly about that before I move into Q&A. This is the most recent roadmap that's available. There has been some changes slightly, and this is the roadmap that Salesforce have provided. So there has been some changes slightly. For example, display text is due to go GA in the next couple of releases, potentially as early as spring release. So that'll be around January, February time. For most, it'll be February. And at the moment is in a beta, but it'll be GA soon. We have reactive choice as well. Those have just come in the Winter 24 release. And there's also work happening on other components as well, going down the line, such as reactive long text area, reactive record choice sets and text templates, and reactive record fields inside of your screen flow. So there's a lot more coming. Reactive long text area would be really good. And we haven't demoed it in this session, but just to be very clear, reactive display text. Reactive display text only changes the value of what is included in your display text formula. So if you add in a reactive formula in a display text component, that will react. What doesn't happen at the moment, and I don't know if it's in the pipeline in the future or anything like that, is formatting is not reactive natively. So there is potentially ways you could make something reactive through by using a formula. I haven't quite got that working myself, so I haven't got a formula to turn text bold or underline it or anything like that. But I am under the impression that is feasibly possible, but I haven't gotten to work yet. However, changing of the values is totally doable, but I haven't got formatting to React as of yet, and I'm not sure whether that is coming natively anytime soon. That's a bit of an example as to what is reactive at the moment and what is coming on reactive screen flows. And so we've got about 7 minutes left, so I'm going to just share my last couple of slides and then we'll move into Q&A very, very quickly. So let's finish off these slides, and then we've got about 5 minutes remaining for Q&A. This screen here does have a link to a Google Sheet with some free resources on. As I mentioned earlier on, there's some Trailhead content in there. There was some content from the Salesforce admin team, with some blogs, and also the session that kind of really showcased reactive screen flows to the world originally from Adam White over at Trailblazer DX earlier this year. All load of resources for that are available via this QR code here. And also it is the full link for that is also in this chat. So before we move into QA, I want to say a big thank you again for attending, and I will stop sharing the screen just so I can see the chat to try and pick up on any questions that are coming in. So let me just stop sharing my screen briefly, and then we'll go into the chat. So I'm looking to see if there's any questions. I don't see any questions so far. We do have about 5 minutes remaining. On there. So, Paul, I do see a question in the main chat as well about trailer badges on Flow. There is a really good, there's a load of good badges on Trailhead on Flow. If you just go to the Trailhead and search Flow Builder, there's one such as Screen Flows is a good one. There is a really good badge on Record Triggered Flows as well. So there's a bunch of badges in there that are available in there. But Screen Flows and Record Trigger Flows are probably two of the ones I would start off with for that. But yes.
Thank you, Mark Jones, for this wonderful session. I have one small question. Just like you make some so small change on the automation setting, right? This reactive screen flow. Is there any other extra, configuration that we need on this reactive flow?
Yeah. So to answer your question, if I'm understanding correctly, I think the question there was: is there any other settings you need to enable to use reactive screen flows? The answer to that is no, not anymore. There might be in future releases, but I don't know what they would be. So, for example, when long text area comes in, I can see that potentially being something that would have to be enabled potentially in the next release or two. Same with reactive record field changes. I can perceive that being an opt-in beta. But at the moment, there's only display text that is needed to be turned on if you want to use that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, no worries. I'm just having a look to see if there's any more questions coming in. Sorry, Paul, I'm just picking up on your other question as well. There is actually a tool available to migrate process builder to Flow. And what I can do very, very quickly, so I know it's not technically part of the session, but let me just share my screen again so you can see. So let me just go into, I'm just going to share the window again. So if you're in your Salesforce home here, and if you come back into home, and tell you what, let me just do it the old-fashioned way. So if I go into setup and you go into your home here, and just type in the word migrate, you get migrate to Flow in there. And there is a wizard that you can follow in there. I don't have any workflow rules or process builders, but you can see here if you click on go and set up a migrate and go to migrate to Flow. If you had any process builders or workflow rules, there's a button here for migrate to Flow where you'd be able to migrate your stuff across. There is some things to consider with that in terms of how to use it well, because it does do things like set the naming convention for your flow, which can't be changed when you migrate. You can change it for your elements, but you can't change your flow as API name, for example. So there are some considerations in how you would use it from there, but you can migrate to Flow straight from here. And just having another quick look to see if there's any more questions coming through. So it doesn't look like there's any questions there, but if anybody does have any more questions, I've shared my my profile on social media as well, but I will share it in my LinkedIn just in the chat as well, just for anybody. If you have any further questions that we don't answer now, because we've only got a minute left, I don't see any more coming through. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I will try and answer as much as I can. So yes, so with that, just want to say a big thank you for coming along, and hope everybody enjoys the rest of the conference. So thank you.